مساء الخير. Good evening. بداية سنبدأ بقراءة الفاتحة على أرواح شهدائنا في غزة الحبيبة. مساء الخير. Good evening. On behalf of the Sheikh Ibrahim Center for Culture and Research, we would like to welcome everyone, whether you are present here with us today or following us on YouTube channel, our platform. We are pleased to receive a delegation from the World Monuments Fund, especially the chair and the vice chair of the board. A warm welcome to Bahrain. What a subject. The safeguard of the cultural heritage in the Arab countries. There is an urgent need to preserve heritage. Why preserve it? What does the World Monuments Fund do around the world? We will discover it with the president and the chief executive officer of the World Monuments Fund, Mrs. Bénédicte de Montlaur. Bienvenue à Bahrain. Bienvenue au centre. Who oversees the implementation of the fund's general policy in 30 countries around the world. Mrs. de Montlaur has a rich background in culture, arts, politics, international diplomacy, and human rights. Prior to joining the World Monuments Fund, she spent 2 decades and more than 10 years in the Arab world, working as a senior diplomat at the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where she used to speak Arabic. ولذلك سنطلب منها بداية أن تتحدث ولو قليلا باللغة العربية، وبعدها نشاهد عمل الصندوق. أهلا وسهلا بك.
فمساء الخير وشكرا جزيلا للدكتور إلي للتقديم، وشكرا لكم لهذا الاستقبال الحار ببحرين، ومرحبا بالجميع. أنا مسرورة أن أكون هنا هذا المساء في مركز الشيخ إبراهيم، وأنا متأسفة للغة العربية المكسرة شوي، لقد مر زمان طويل منذ أن تحدثت بالعربية، ولكن أنا سعيدة جداً لهذه الفرصة وللدعوة للحديث اليوم عن ضرورة التحفظ على التراث الثقافي في العالم العربي وحول العالم من قبل معالي الشيخة ماي. تعتبر الشيخة ماي مدافعة استثنائية عن التراث الثقافي في الوطن العربي، وانضمت إلى مجلس أمناء الصندوق العالمي للآثار في عام 2021، ومنذ ذلك أصبحت سفيرة ثابتة لعملنا. أود أن أشكركم جميعاً لحضوركم هذا المحاضرة اليوم رغم من الوضع المأساوي في المنطقة. والآن أرجو أن تسمحوا لي بالمتابعة باللغة الإنجليزية. أسهل لي. Okay, so I'm going to continue in English. It's more my natural language now that I live in the US. So today we're going to speak about cultural heritage, and I'm sure that many of you in this room and many people who are following us on YouTube are convinced of the importance of heritage. But sometimes people are not aware of the urgency of preserving heritage because they think it's like this moai, you know, this head from Easter Island that is very stable, looking to us from the centuries. The truth is that in many places in the world, heritage is disappearing and disappearing fast. I will just talk about one story that we all know. When we look at this image, we are all reminded of the destruction of the Buddhas of Bamiyan in 2001. And even if we have no relationship with Afghanistan maybe, even maybe we've not been to this country, I think we all feel a sense of personal loss. And this illustrates so well the fact that heritage is a part of our shared history, our shared identity. It doesn't belong to one people or to one place in the world, it belongs to all of us. And we feel this horror because here it was attacked on purpose, but sometimes it's just coming from an accident, as I think we all remember when we saw the first pictures of the fire of Notre Dame Cathedral. And whatever our religion or our citizenship, same thing here, we felt that it's a part of our history that is disappearing. We all are aware of the many threats. I think Venice is the perfect illustration of the fragile situation of heritage. Climate change is impacting heritage in so many places, and every time there is a high rise in Venice, it requires so many efforts to save it. And of course, more recently, we have been all praying for the civilians, whatever the sides in the Middle East who are suffering. And of course, the humanitarian situation is the priority. But I think we are also mourning all the heritage sites that are being lost in this region because they are an anchor of the history. And here is a picture of St. Porphyrius Church in Gaza that was impacted recently. So there are many threats to heritage, and in fact there is an urgency to preserve it. Conflict has become one of the main threats because more and more heritage is not anymore just a collateral victim of the wars, but it's in fact directly targeted, as we've seen in Iraq, but also in Mali and in so many other places of the world. Natural disasters are increasing. Here you have a picture of the Gulf of Mexico, where many wooden structures are being destabilized and have to be rebuilt after every hurricane. Climate change, so many heritage sites are on the coast all around the world, and sea level rise is provoking the loss of many of them, and it will increase more and more. Tourism is necessary to heritage. This is what brings income and revenue. So heritage cannot live without tourism, but it is a double-edged sword. And as you can see in this famous picture of the wall of the Great Wall of China, it also destroys heritage when it's not well managed. So we need a balanced approach to heritage. And of course, the oldest enemy of heritage is just the passage of time. We were just with the chair and vice chair of our board in Alula, and we were visiting the old city of Alula, and it was impressive to see all those houses collapsing and the urgency of rehabilitating, because as people were telling us when we were there, if you waited 5 or 10 more years, at one point you cannot recover this heritage. So it's not there forever, and when it's gone, it's gone. And finally, disappearance of skills. So many skills have been inherited from centuries and centuries of knowledge. And same thing, when the last person who knows the skill disappears, then it's gone. Here you have a picture of a program we have in Japan about gold leaf, how to treat gold leaf, which is a very rare skill, and we realized that the last person who had this skill were around 75 years old. So that's why with Tiffany we created a program to revive this skill and create a new generation of people who could use the gold leaves. But fortunately, it's not only about threats. Heritage represents a lot of opportunities. Heritage is what makes us, or part of what makes us who we are. It represents our history. Today we went to Qalat Bahrain, we went to the museum, and of course we are all aware of the Pearling Path. And without this knowledge of our history that is really anchored in heritage, then we don't know who we are. We have no past and then no future because we cannot understand who we are as a people. It's part of our diverse identities. It's what creates a community. Like heritage is really what brings people together. And of course, it represents opportunity. It's not just sentimentality about the past. You can see it in so many places. Here, but as I said, we were just in Alula, where you see so many tourists coming. I come from France, which is really a country that has invested a lot on heritage. Heritage represents a source of income. If it's well restored and if it's well managed, then it represents so many opportunities for people today. So heritage definitely matters, and this is why World Monuments Fund exists. So who are we? Here you have a picture of lots of the permanent staff. We come from all around the world. We have people from India, we have people from France, we have people from Yemen, we have people from Syria, we have people from China. So it's a very diverse team. Here is a picture taken at our last project week, where we gathered a lot of the international staff at our headquarters in New York. Our mission is to work with local communities around the world to safeguard irreplaceable cultural heritage. So I'm going to get into more details about that, but the idea is that we work with partners all around the world to safeguard heritage. We were created in 1965, and since then we've carried on more than 700 projects. So we were funded by Colonel James Gray, who was a retired colonel from the American Army, and he was really passionate about heritage, and he realized in 1965 that there was no independent organization. That's really important. We are not a governmental organization. This is an NGO. He decided to bring together individuals, mainly in the US, who cared about heritage, to save heritage around the world. So here you see, he was passionate about the Tower of Pisa. He wanted to stabilize it. And he very quickly started projects with communities around the world, Easter Island, and here you have the churches of Lalibela in Ethiopia. What's important about us is that I think our strength is that we are very local and very global. Here, it just amused me to put together those two pictures of one leaning minaret. You know it. It's a Nouri Mosque in Baghdad and the Tower of Pisa. Just as an illustration that there are some common challenges and, of course, many, many differences. And the importance is that because we are as local as we can, but we also bring global expertise, our projects favor these concrete projects and this concrete exchange between people all around the world. It favors better mutual understanding of our difference and what each civilization has brought to the world. So today we are based in New York, so we have our headquarters in New York, and we have affiliates in 6 countries. So we started developing affiliates in Europe, so in Britain, France, Spain, and Portugal. And more recently, we've opened branches in Peru and in India. But we are also present in all the other regions of the world without a permanent office, but with project managers and local partners. So how do we work? Here, I will give you an example of one of our most important projects. So let me take you to Cambodia. So many of you are aware of the Khmer civilization, that they ruled the major part of Southeast Asia between the 9th and the 15th century. And then when they got out of power, their heritage, their extraordinary temples were more and more, they disappeared under the jungle. Then people started researching it after the 1850s, but in the 70s, a civil war started, and the Khmer Rouge decided to really decimate anybody who was educated. So at the end of the Civil War, you had no more than 100 college-educated people left in Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia. So they really had decimated everybody who had studied or was interested in culture. World Monuments Fund was the first Western organization called back to Cambodia, to Angkor. And there, you have to understand, like, there were landmines everywhere. Going to those temples was, in fact, extremely dangerous. We decided, and that's the first team of World Monuments Fund more than 30 years ago. Since then, we've been working on 4 sites, 4 different sites in Angkor, along with many other international teams. Of course, there are several things that are important here. The first one is that this is extraordinary heritage, extraordinary cultural achievements around the world. But I think even more importantly, through our projects and the projects of many of our colleagues, there is a whole new generation of people who have been trained and who can now take care of these sites. This January, we're going to hand over 3 of those sites, the 2, one on the top and the one on the right, to the Cambodian authorities, because now they have a whole generation of people in Cambodia who can take care of it. And we will finish the project of Phnom Baken, which is one of the oldest temples in Cambodia. Of course, the other important thing is that I think for those of you who have been to Angkor, you will understand this. This place in Cambodia illustrates the power of heritage. When we got there, it was a country that was completely ruined. There was nobody going there. Today, you have a modern airport. You have people coming from all around the world to visit this place, creating thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs for the local community of this country. So this is a perfect example of what heritage preservation, well done, can achieve. It represents hope, especially in the aftermath of a conflict. So this is the team now, today, at World Monuments Fund. So as you can see, we are extremely local. Most of the team here on this picture, except one person, is Cambodian. So WMF in the Arab countries. So here you have a picture of a training program that was led in Mafraq in El Urdun. So WMF, World Monuments Fund, with local partners all around the region, has carried more than 58 projects in 12 countries. Today, we are focused on 3 main countries. So first, Egypt. That was one of our first projects. It's in Luxor. It is a temple of Amenhotep III. It's known as the Colossi of Memnons, where we had our first intervention in '96. At the moment, we have an active project in Abydos, which is one of the most important sites of pharaonic history, because this is where the Upper and Lower Egypt united, and we are working along with the archaeological teams to do some conservation on the Osirian, which is a place devoted to the cult of Osiris, as well as a tourism management plan for the site. But what's important to us is to work, you will see it in other countries, on the diversity of heritage of one country. So of course in Egypt you have pharaonic heritage, but here is Taqiyat Ibrahim el-Gulshani. This is for those of you Egyptians in the room. So it's in front of Bab Zuwayla, next to the quarter of the textile, just next to it. And this is a project that, it's a Taqiyat Mamluk that was, dates back to the 16th century, and it was abandoned. And this is a project about how to find a new use. The idea of heritage is not just to stick things in the past and to freeze things in the past, but how to find new use to these places that represent our history, but that need to have a social value for people today. So here we want to work with the community around. There are lots of craftsmen people around to see what kind of use can be developed alongside with the conservation of this beautiful taqiyat. In Iraq, we are very involved. This is a picture of Ishtar Gate, where we've been working since 2009. And with lots of conservation team, doing very physical conservation. But in Iraq, one of the most recent projects that we launched is the restoration of the Mosul Cultural Museum. And I think this is also very symbolic of what heritage can achieve. I don't know if you remember, but I think all of us remember, Daesh or ISIS, they fell, and Mosul was liberated only 6 years ago. It seems like an eternity, right? But it was in 2017. And when they left, Mosul was in ruins. And this place, the Mosul Cultural Museum, was particularly significant because this is the place where Daesh destroyed the ancient statues. I'm sure you've all seen this movie. So now we've allied with Alif and the Smithsonian and the Louvre, alongside with the Iraqi government, to restore this place as a place of hope and cultural gathering for the Mosul inhabitants. And what's extraordinary in Mosul, everybody who has been there has told me, like, just in 6 years, you've seen inhabitants coming back, shop reopening, and concert being organized. You will see some pictures of the concert being organized. So this revival of Mosul has been allowed through many things, but one very important thing were all the major cultural heritage projects that were launched in the city. So finally, another project here that I wanted to show is in Iraq. Also, this is a Yazidi shrine. And as you know, there was a genocide committed against the Yazidi. So it's important, we think, to work not only on very well-known places like Babylon or Abydos, but also on more modest structures like this Yazidi shrine that are so important for the communities themselves. Yemen, finally, at the moment, we are very active in Taiz, in Yemen, where we are restoring, this is the Imam Palace in Taiz, and we are also working on guidelines for the restoration of the old city of Taiz. And there, it's very difficult. As you know, the situation is still very, very difficult in Yemen. So the way we work is that we train our Yemeni partners in different centers around the region. So we've had some trainings in Kuwait, as well as in Cairo, and then they execute the restorations themselves in Yemen. And I think it's quite incredible to see that heritage preservation is possible even in such dramatic circumstances. And the testimony we receive from people is that this really gives hope to the communities there, that they can restore at least their heritage despite the difficult circumstances. So one of our values is a people-first approach, meaning that it's not stones for stones, it's stones for people. And so what we do and what we think is very important through heritage is capacity building and training. So here is a picture of a training program we have in New York, in some cemeteries where we do some stonemasonry training program. But we also have some training programs in many other places. On the top, you have a program in China where we created conservation master program with Tsinghua University. Some wood carving programs where this skill was lost and was revived through a project in Mandalay in Myanmar. And then you have all the staff at Takiyat Ibrahim al-Gulshani in Egypt at the bottom, as well as some stonemasonry training programs that we carried in Jordan and in Lebanon. So at the moment, we are conducting 51 projects in 33 countries. And I think the important thing to realize is that it's not enough. The needs all around the world are immense. And for all those projects that we are able to take on, we receive every single day requests from partners all around the world who want to safeguard their heritage, our common heritage. So that's what we think, that we all have to work together to do more. Because what's extraordinary is that you have very few organizations preserving heritage on a global scale. There are many local or national organizations, but very few international organizations. And I think the world is very aware of the disappearance of natural resources, and that's extremely important, but less aware of the disappearance of cultural resources. And one, they are disappearing, and second, they can really improve our world, make a better world, world of more respect between people, more opportunities. So that's why I think we all have to mobilize around this goal. So where are we going? We are trying to pick projects that are addressing the most important issues of our time. So I've talked about it, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. Climate change. You know, not only heritage is impacted, is a victim of climate change, but sometimes heritage can help mitigate climate change. Here you have a picture of some traditional water systems in India, where they were completely abandoned, and now we've revived, thanks to the support of Tata Consultancy Services. We are restoring a lot of those traditional beautiful stepwells that will help mitigate the water crisis and provide clean water to people. So that's just one example where traditional techniques can address some of the problems of today. Not all of them, obviously, but can really address. So there is a whole movement of revival of traditional techniques. We are also working very hard on inclusive heritage, trying to highlight heritage of various minorities, trying to show the diversity of the world. Balanced tourism is definitely a priority, as well as post-crisis recovery. We've been talking about that. Just a word about climate change, so everybody realizes. The first thing is that there is very limited global data at the moment of the impact of climate change, but we know that, for example, in the Mediterranean, 47 of the 49 coastal World Heritage sites in the Mediterranean are likely to be gravely affected. Rising sea levels will threaten 70% of African heritage by 2050. And climate change is the single greatest threat to the livelihood, security, and well-being of the peoples of the Pacific. So we are not going to be able to save all those heritage places, but we have to design strategies to make sure to designate, or at least to document, all those places, and the most important one, that may disappear because of sea level rise mainly. So what are the opportunities? You may tell me, okay, we would really like to work with World Monuments Fund and to safeguard our heritage. So we have a program called The Watch, by which we receive every 2 years nominations from all around the world. So it's not us from New York who decide on our project or just pick project. No, we receive, it's people, it's like individuals, non-governmental organization, preservation group, who nominate sites that they think are really important for their community, that will allow them to create opportunities. So they nominate, and every 2 years we have independent experts, external experts, evaluating all those nominations, and we select 25 places. We also have a crisis response program that allows us to react quickly. So for example, I was supposed to be just a week ago in the south of Turkey at the border with Syria, that was impacted by the earthquake that happened this year. Things go so fast that sometimes we forget, but there was this dramatic earthquake in Turkey and Syria back in February, and we mobilized our crisis response program, and we got some support from the State Department, and we are launching a project to restore a mosque, a synagogue, and a church in Antakya. In the south of Turkey. And finally, we are creating partnerships with governments, with foundations, and major signature projects, like has been the case for Mosul. So one of our goals is to reinforce our action in the Middle East. As we've talked about before, we have those permanent offices, but in Middle East and North Africa, we have many projects, but not a permanent office yet. So that's why with Sheikh Hameh and several of us, you see this picture dates back from yesterday, we went all around the region for 1 week with the chair and vice chair of our board, and visited also places here in Bahrain to see what we can do in the future to reinforce our presence in the Arab countries. And when I say we, it's all of us. What I mean is, what we want to do is to really have a leadership as global as our portfolio of projects. So what we want is to have a group of Arab leaders really leading the way to preserve the heritage and to cooperate with everyone else around the world to preserve heritage, because it is so rich in the Arab countries. So in conclusion, I just want to come back on the Museum of Mosul. And this is Zaid Abdallah, who is the director of the museum. So he was working at the Museum of Mosul before its destruction. And what he told us is that when Daesh arrived, when ISIS arrived and destroyed the museum, for him it was like losing a child. He felt really terrible because this place encapsulated the soul of this city. And the destruction was pretty dramatic, as you can see here, because they put explosive, they put fire on the library. Today is working with us to restore the whole project. The place will not be exactly like it was before. Once again, restoration is not just going back to the past, it's preserving the essential elements, but adding some new elements for sustainability, for accessibility, and for the place to be really, to restore hope and to create opportunities for the inhabitants of Mosul. So I will end in Arabic. في الوقف الحالي نركز جميعاً على الصراع الدائر في غزة حيث تستعر الحرب، ومع الأسف نرى في العالم كله النزاعات والحروب وعدم الاستقرار. وفي هذا السياق قد يتساءل المرء عما إذا كان من المعقول الحديث على حفاظ على التراث في الوقت الحالي. حسناً للترخيص الدقائق الثلاثين الماضية، هذه هي إجابتي: إنه ليس معقول فحسب، بل إنه ضرورة. وفي مواجهة الكراهية والانقسام والصراع يمثل أعمالنا الجانب الآخر من المعادلة. نحن نجمع الناس حول الجمال والإنجازات الثقافية العظيمة. نحن نحتفل بالهويات المحلية ونحافظ عليها، ونبني الروابط بين الشعوب، ونلهم الاحترام المتبادل، مما يجعل كل منا وكل ثقافة فريدة من نوعها. وحيثما بوجود دمار فإننا لا نعمل على ترميم المباني فحسب، بل نعمل على استعادة الأمل. تعمل مشاريعنا على جمع الناس حول هدف مشترك يقدم الدخل للبعض والإلهام للجميع، وأمل أن تنضم إلينا لمواصلة هذا العمل الأساسي. وشكراً لكم.
نعمل على استعادة الأمل. كم هو جميل هذه الكلمات. Thank you so much for this presentation that reflects really the richness of your work and the world. Like more than 30, as we said, 30 countries, you're there. The floor is yours. Your questions are welcomed, Arabic, English, or French. Yeah? We can translate as well. أهلا وسهلا بكل أسئلتكم. الميكروفون مع زميلنا عبد الله لأي سؤال حول المؤسسة، حول whatever you want to have. Like دكتور عبد الله لو سمحت. دكتورة بهية.
شكرا جزيلا على هذا العرض الجميل اللي أخذنا في طفتي حول العالم بنا في هذا العرض اللي قدمتي. أنا لفت نظري عبارة وردت أثناء الحديث عن الموصل، قلتي عشتارز جيت. أنا أعرف أن عشتار جيت موجود في متحف برلين، فيا ريت يعني تشرحين كيف، هل ما زال هناك بقايا لعشتار جيت في الموصل أم نقل الجيت كله إلى برلين؟ شكرا.
Then if the question is about Ashtar's Gate, if we still have in Mosul ruins or something, or in Babylon, or in Berlin.
You mentioned that you were working with Ashtar Gate in Mosul, and I know that Ashtar Gate is in the museum in Berlin. So I just want you to give us an idea. I don't know. I was confused a little bit.
No, thank you. It's a great question, and a question that I think many people have when we present our work in Babylon. So it's Ashtar Gate is in Babylon, and you're right. It's very well promoted that Ishtar Gate is in the museum in Berlin, the Pergamon. But the truth is that a lot of it in the museum in Berlin is reconstructed. And so there is a lot of it that remains in Babylon. So this is the remains that we are working on and restoring and conserving. So basically it was not all transported to Berlin. We are working on the remains in Babylon, and in fact, as you saw, it's really important. And along with this project, we are in fact working on other projects in Babylon around mud architecture that will serve as a model, because this is one of the things that we are doing. We work on some very specific emblematic projects. We work on the technique, and then it can be replicated around the country. So, for example, all the work we are carrying on in Babylon on mud architecture, they will serve as models for other places in Iraq. To answer your question, in fact, there is a lot of Ishtar Gate that is remaining in Babylon. But thank you. Other questions? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Julia. I'm with the GDN newspaper here. I had a specific question. So you said you visited the Pearl Path here in Bahrain. So after the collapse of the pearling industry in Bahrain, many of those divers switched to the newly founded oil sector. And now there's few pearl divers that remain today. How can you train new generations to conserve those unique set of skills in their heritage? And also, are there any specific plans through your trip here that you have for the future in Bahrain?
Okay, thank you for this great question. I think for all of us at World Monuments Fund who didn't necessarily know so well Bahrain, it was illuminating to visit the visitor center. I think that's why it's so important to construct these kind of places, is for, of course, the people of the country, but more importantly, even like all the people who visit to learn about the great culture and what was really at the foundation of this country. So about the training for next pearl divers, it's not our focus. We focus really on heritage, but I'm sure some programs are maybe developed here in Bahrain, or that's something that really would depend on the Bahrain authorities. It depends, of course, on the industries as well. What's important, in my view, is conserving the memory of all the culture that went also with this industry. If I remember correctly, last time I was here 2 years ago, I remember listening to some music and some songs that were the songs of the pearl divers that they were singing on the boats. And that really like sort of encapsulated their soul, you know, and their feelings when they were going on those boats. And so preserving not only, I mean, the industry, sometimes it goes away, but there are some certain elements of culture that is very important to document and to keep alive. So it's a very complex work, and I know some of it is going on here in Bahrain, and it should continue. And for our projects, well, what I have to say is that, first of all, World Monuments Fund has cooperated many times with Bahrain. One example of that, I didn't say it, but Babylon was inscribed in 2000, I think, 19 or 18 on the World Heritage List, and you know, this requires a lot of documentation work, gathering the files, and a lot of that has happened with our Iraqi colleagues here at the UNESCO Center in Bahrain. So very often we used and we collaborated with the UNESCO Center here in Bahrain to conduct seminar projects, etc. Now, because Sheikh Hameh is on our board of trustees, we are working with her to see how we can establish a permanent presence, hopefully in Bahrain, but we'll see. We have to work on this for the Arab countries. Thank you. Yes?
Thank you very much. It was very illuminating, I have to tell you, and I think all-inclusive. But I'm wondering about one thing for when you talked about climate change, and you showed us the pictures of Venice, as well as what we have seen in mass media about the Maldives and about islands in the Pacific and so on. What can be done to save something like Venice, for example, that is apparently very endangered in a very severe way?
So the answer is it depends. It will depend from place to place. So in Venice, they've invested a lot. As you know, they've built this sort of system that is called the MOSI, and it is raised. It is raised every time there is a high tide. The problem is that they were planning to use it maybe 10 times a year, and now they are already using it much more times than they thought they would have to use it. So for how long this will work, I don't know. And obviously, such an expensive mechanism cannot be constructed all around the world for every heritage places. So some places, I know that even Manhattan in New York is impacted by sea level rise. So they are starting to build around Manhattan these kinds of system also to block the water from invading the island. But obviously that won't be possible everywhere. And even those systems, we don't know for how long they will be effective. So the very important thing is, number one, to document those places, to make sure we keep those memories. Second is to look at the systems, and the system to prevent the water from rising is very different from one place to another. For example, our Monuments Fund, we worked at a fort in Tanzania called Kilwa Kiswani. And there it was impacted also by sea level rise, so the fort was disappearing. And one very simple solution that was found was to have the mangrove being cultivated because it kept water away. So we had to work with the inhabitants of the nearby village, because the problem is that they had their animals eating all the mangrove. So we had to negotiate with them and to find a common solution to have the animals grazing somewhere else so that the mangrove could grow again and prevent the water to destroy the fort. So you see, the solutions sometimes are very technological and sometimes very simple, but it always involves a community around the place, because very often they have the knowledge, they know what to do. So that's number one. It's not always like super modern technologies that has to be used. Sometimes it's traditional knowledge that can be used. Second, it will really depend from one place to another, but sometimes there are some local solutions. And the important thing is to know what is the value of these places for the identity and history of the community, and to document it. Like you're doing, Shahira, with the textiles of Egypt. Yes. Okay.
Shukran. Thank you so much for having shared with us this beautiful experience. Good luck. We need your hope and your beauty, the beauty and the hope of the World Monuments Fund, especially in our region, where war, unfortunately, is everywhere. Hope to live a peaceful moment, and hope to hear soon about your office in the region, perhaps in Bahrain, as you said. ألف شكر للجميع. لقاءنا غدا مع دكتورة شهيرة الساعة 7 مساء مع توقيع الكتاب. Then with you, Dr. Shahira Mahris, tomorrow about your last book. The book launch will be here in the center at 7 o'clock. إلى اللقاء. نراكم.